One, two, three, four.
Hello and welcome to another episode of SIS. My name is Erin Stroud and you are joining me for another episode within our Starting in Science series. And this is a series that's targeted at people at the beginning of their science careers. Today we're going to be talking about the importance of mentoring. And mentoring is incredibly valuable but often undersubscribed in the university and early career researcher experience. Students with mentors report feeling more at home in the academic space, self-identifying as researchers or a component of the workforce. However, only 22% of undergraduate students actually have a mentor. And this also extends out into the workplace, with 76% of people thinking that mentors are important, but only 37% of people actually having one. So to chat more about the benefits of mentoring for both the mentor and the mentee, I'm joined by three fantastic panelists today. So without further ado, I'll stop doing all the talking and get some of our guests to introduce themselves and talk about what their current roles are, starting with my own personal mentor, Priya.
Hi, Erin. Thank you. Kia ora, everyone. My name is Priya Subramanian, and I arrived to New Zealand in the middle of the longest lockdown in 2021, and it's been a lovely couple of years since. I currently am working as a lecturer in the Department of Mathematics at the University of Auckland, and I know Erin because we both kind of wrote to an organization asking, hey, I'd like to be a mentor and I'd like to be a mentee. And they just matched us up. So that's how I came to know Erin. And I have myself had a lot of mentors throughout my career. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more through this podcast about why that could also make a lot of difference in your careers. Thanks.
Jill.
Kia ora, everyone. And thanks, Erin, for inviting me. It's going to be fun, I think. So I'm Jill. I am a plant physiologist, scientist, and I'm also a science group leader for a group working on fruit crop physiology, about 40 staff, 8 sites in New Zealand and 2 staff in Australia. So I do a mix of science myself and leading a team of researchers. I've been around for a lot longer than Priya, 42 years, working for plant and food research and its predecessors, and started out pretty much at the bottom. So that's an interesting part of my career, and I'm really, really passionate about mentoring. And yeah, we'll talk a bit about that later.
And last but certainly not least, we've got Lizzie.
Kia ora koutou, talo whalawa, malawe lele, ko Lizzie tōku ingoa. My name is Lizzie and I'm a student support advisor with the Faculty of Science here at Auckland University. I work with the Māori and Pacifica cohort of students, and I've been here just over a year now, so quite new, but my role is predominantly in pastoral care with students, but can also assist with other things because I guess, students' lives are very holistic. It's not just one thing. And I also, a lot of my mentoring experience, I've got quite a broad youth working background, which I did before I came here. So and I've had a lot of experience being a mentor and a mentee prior to coming here, and I'm really excited to be a part of this conversation.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today. We've certainly got a star-studded panel to be talking about mentoring. That's fantastic. So let's start off by talking about maybe your experiences of being mentored either through your university or your career going through. It would be good to hear about maybe some good things, maybe some bad things, and maybe some things you might do differently if you were going through that early phase of the mentoring relationship again. So Jill, can I pass to you and ask how mentoring has sort of impacted your career trajectory?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think 42 years ago, I don't think I'd even heard of the term mentoring. So I didn't really have what you would call a mentor in that sense of sitting down with someone and talking about your career and where you're heading and, advising on that. But I did have quite a few line managers and colleagues who partly fill that mentoring role of challenging me about my career, supported me in taking opportunities. And I think that's really helped me in kind of pushing myself forward. So I started out as a technician and I've worked my way up, and now I'm, a science group leader and a principal scientist for plant and food research. It's taken 42 years, but I think I've really appreciated those people who did sort of push me and encourage me, and that's made a real difference. For example, my line manager way back near the beginning pointed out there was a technician study award to go and study overseas, and so he encouraged me to go and apply for that, and I actually got it, and I went to the UK for 6 months and worked as sort of as if I was on a sabbatical, did a piece of research and wrote up a scientific paper with the person there. So that was one thing that really did make an impact on me. And another one was encouraging me and giving me the opportunity to become one of the New Zealand representatives on an international society council. And that introduced me to a whole range of, senior people in horticultural science around the world. And I've gone on to become voted onto the board of that society. So, those are things that have had a big impact on me, that these mentors have kind of encouraged me to step out of my comfort zone and go ahead.
I think you bring up a really interesting and important point there, Jill, that often people view that mentoring relationship as being someone that you explicitly sort of make an appointment with, and then you go and talk about your aspirations and feelings and where you're trying to go in your career. But often the people that hold that mentoring role are the colleagues that are around you, or your line manager, or even, your mum. It can be anyone holding that mentoring role.
Yeah. And I think that's what I've had. I've had not one person, but a number of people who I've been able to talk to and who have collectively or individually prompted me to move forward.
So you've had 42 years in this role. Lizzie's only had 1 year in her current role. Have you had any mentors in the role that you're in at the moment, Lizzie, or is this a new space for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I probably would say new space. I think in a lot of my youth working experience, we set up mentoring as quite a formal relationship, and there were lots of advantages about that, which I guess I can speak to later. But I loved how Jill just talked about mentoring. Yeah, it can be you may not have the specific title of a mentor, but there's people in your life and in your workplace that offer, I guess mentoring, or can mentor you in different spaces. That's really cool. And it also just reminded me, in Te Ao Māori, there's a concept called tuakana teina, and it's tuakana being maybe like an older sibling or an older person, and teina being the younger. Yeah, often you think of the older person maybe guiding the younger person or teaching them skills, but the gift of the concept is that it is reciprocal as well between the two. So the younger can also learn from the old. Yeah, and I think it just was making me reflect that mentoring can look different in different spaces. But yeah, I think for me, I've found mentoring positively impactful. I think the thing that I thought about on top that was really good, I found it really helpful to have someone to process like observations that I'd made about my work and my workplace. I think mainly my mentors has been older, and I think I've found that as you get older with age, your perspective on life broadens. So I found it really helpful when I'm really like in a scenario or situation, having someone who's older, who's got a broader perspective that can just like give me another perspective on what I'm seeing. And yeah, that's just been really good. And also to have a space where I feel really safe to express, what I'm maybe finding challenging or just all the things that I'm seeing. Yeah, know that it's a really judgment-free space. I think maybe something that I would do differently maybe in the future. I think I have found that I've got the most out of mentoring when it's been a bit more structured. Yeah, in terms of the relationship, maybe, committing to meet, like however many times like with a certain frequency, and maybe also like having a little bit of preparation in terms of like thinking a little bit before what I would bring to the session and what I want to chat about. You totally can just rock up and yeah, see where it goes. But I think, yeah, you get more out of that time and learning from someone when, yeah, you like prepare a little bit prior. So
Yeah, I
yeah, those
totally
are my
get that
thoughts.
point. I think I've had many mentors across my very short career so far, and I kind of tend to use my mentors for different things. Like one of my supervisors, shout out to Dr. Matt Templeton, is the calmest I've ever met in my entire life. So if I'm spinning out, I'll often go to him, and I've got other mentors that I'll go for other things, but I've always done better when I've pre-planned, I think. Priya, we have an interesting mentor-mentee relationship, don't we? Because we're
Yeah.
both mentor and mentee, but we're also friends.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we go to quiz together at a pub, but I mean, in relation to what Jill and Lizzie were saying, I wanted to kind of put in another aspect to having a mentor-mentee relationship. And this is, yes, 90% of the kind of mentors and mentee relationships I've had in my experience are one-on-one, but some of the most impactful ones are also where a group of us come together to talk about it. Like the first time I saw any of my colleagues in person, this was the first in-person event after 4 years for me when I landed in New Zealand, was the Women in Maths and Physics kind of retreat. So I basically got to see my colleagues and women working across this field, across New Zealand in one space. And it was just for an evening. And we had like, some topics where somebody gave a talk, but then we kind of had our own discussion about it. Then we had little group activities or something, but this communal way of having a mentorship, because randomly some person would say, oh, I remember you talking about this. Have you thought about this? That is all. In some sense, that is not a very committed mentor-mentee relationship, but it can still be very impactful because that one line that person said has made me go approach this opportunity and maybe later get it. I mean, it's a long-term thing, right? I kind of find that both in a single one-on-one meeting with a mentor and a mentee or a communal one like this, the biggest thing is you were talking about the importance of going there planned with some idea of what you want to do. I would say equally important, if not more, is even if you go there and they say something, end of conversations are peppered with ideas where they just say, oh, you might want to try this. You might want to look into this. If you just write it down and actually follow it, that's all. If you just look up that page, if you just look up that person, or if you just say hi to the person that this mentor or mentee has asked you to say or find, that already goes a long way. So following up is probably equally important as being planned, even if being planned is hard. Just follow up. At the end of this meeting, I always kind of jot down somewhere something. And even if I lose that bit of paper, just the fact that I've written it down means I will remember there is something to look. And if I forget, I can go back to Erin and say, hey, what did you mean about this? Or something like this. And then they can get back to you. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say about mentoring. Yes, Jill.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. I've got several people that I mentor on a regular basis. And at the end of the session, I kind of say, so what have you taken away from this? And that interesting, they all take notes and they say, these are the things I've, taken on board and these are the things I'm going to do. And so it's kind of like recap of what we've talked about. Which is kind of good.
Yeah. I mean, it's their time is precious. Your time is precious. We're all sharing our time. That's the only thing we all have the same amount of. And you want to know that you've helped and they need to know what they've got. It's not something where you can just go say hi, hello, and decide that you're not going to do anything. I just need to rant about this. Can you just listen to me for half an hour? Completely fine thing to do, but that's not the only thing you should be doing because this is a much more richer experience if you allow it. Yeah.
I really like that idea of group mentoring. It's not something that I've actively been involved in the past, although perhaps after saying that maybe I am. I feel like maybe every group meeting, every lab meeting is a bit of a mentoring session these days. But it sounds like that might be more of that Te Ao Māori approach, or what's kind of similarly done in the tuakana programs at the University of Auckland. Lizzie, is that something that you can speak to?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, within the science faculty, the tuakana program, my role in terms of being a support advisor, I predominantly provide pastoral care, and then tuakana looks at more, or they're headed to do academic. Yeah, I'm going to say care, but it's not quite the right word. Support for students. Yeah, that's the one. But yeah, I think also the difference in terms of how we frame and how we chat to students about tuakana, yeah, is that we want it to be like your whānau, your family, a place that's like safe for you to come and hang out, a place for you to make friends, to like come and have some food, to be connected with staff. Yeah, so we want it to be like beyond just an academic support space for students, if that answers your question.
That's really cool. I think I read a study the other day that said that only 50% of PhD students are satisfied with their academic experience, and those that were satisfied with their academic experience cited that being in support groups was the thing that made them feel that way. So I can absolutely see how those wraparound programs, especially when there's food involved, are the ones that will make people feel a little bit happier to be there. So that's really cool, and I'm really happy that there's space for that at the university as well. And I hope that continues to be the case. So Priya, as someone who I know has had many mentors over their pathway through mathematics, how has this relationship changed for you over time? Have you had a different relationship with your mentors as you've gone through?
Absolutely, yes. So most often the line managers are mentors, and that's how the first few mentors in my life came about, because I worked with them as a student or as a postdoc. And for the period that you are working with them, there is the mentor-mentee kind of relationship. But I find that most mentors at that stage, when you are working with them as a student or as a postdoc or as an employee, they would not make the first step to tell you what you can do. In most cases, mentors wait for mentees to make your intentions clear. If somebody comes and says to me, hey, I'm thinking about a PhD, or I'm thinking about some research, or I'm thinking about this, that is when we know, okay, this person's interested. I'm not pushing them into something that they don't want. And now I can suggest to them, hey, you might want to do this. Why don't you try this? Why don't you go to the student research conference that's happening? And you're welcome to join this. And you can put the, you can show them what opportunities exist once the intention has been made clear. And I am a very, I always put my foot in it first. I first open my mouth, sometimes without thinking, which is why I probably have followed this advice unconsciously. I always start before I'm ready. I never feel ready for anything, but I've said something and somebody's told me to do something for it, which means that I can't say, oh, I'll come back in 2 years and try this. I feel like I have to just at least see it. If I like it, I do it. If I cannot, then I don't. But it's like, the importance of just making your intentions known. That way people around you can tell you what they know and show you opportunities that already exist. Because most often we don't want to push people when we are the mentors. And my mentors were extremely good at this, because they were just patiently waiting. And every time I went with, oh, this is what I want to do in 5 years. I don't know, my plan A was, plan A was to become an academic. And plan B was, what can I do with the same skill set if I cannot be an academic? And I chose, because my husband liked to read science explanatory books for the public. I was like, fine, I'm going to write some science for the public communication. And when I told my boss about this, as just like a passing comment, do you know what happened today kind of thing, they were suggesting that's a great idea. Why don't you get involved in being the organizer for some school students to come and experience how university is once a week? And getting to know a lot of other professors through that opportunity meant that I got a job as an academic. The probability of that increased. because these people were telling me, hey, you're interested in this as well. That's great to hear. What do you actually work on? Do you want to apply for a job here? And it kind of, your network of people that care about what happens to you suddenly explodes because you're doing something that is of interest to you, that is not just, you are, when people feel you want to give back, they all want to give to you. It's that's what I want to say. So yeah, I would say my mentors have taught me that always works. And that is probably the biggest kind of thing I want to push on to anybody who comes to speak to me as a mentee is do stuff and don't expect anything. You will get back manyfold. Lots of people want to help others. We're all good at helping others, right? We're not good at helping ourselves. Yeah.
It's funny how that happens sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Lizzie is the person on the call who is probably the most closest to having the job title of being like a mentor or someone who is going to be supporting students through. What made you want to take on this role and have that sort of mentoring role within your job, but you're also obviously the student support advisor?
Yeah.
Sorry, it's a big question. What
Yeah,
made you
yeah.
choose the pathway you've taken?
Yeah. Yeah, this job's sort of a big combination of a lot of my worlds. Yeah, it's being able to, like, I love that I get to work with Māori and Pacifica students, being a Pacifica woman myself. I really enjoy working with people. Yeah, in terms of like a lot of the youth and community work that I've done. And I've, used to study science. So yeah, this job almost like ticked all of these boxes, which is how I ended up here. I think, yeah, it's such a gift to be a mentor. Like, I think it's a real privilege to be able to be a part of a portion of someone else's journey and just to like sit in alongside that. That's just like one of the coolest things. I think once you have a role working with people, there's like a kick you get out of it that you kind of can't get out when you work in other sorts of spaces. So, and I think I've just had really great experiences with mentors, like being a mentee myself. And I think the main thing is that if you're up for it, you're willing and you want to commit, you can be a mentee. You don't have to be, a supposed expert or like all this sort of training. Yeah, it's just about like if you're good at listening and you're ready to, muck in and you want to help, then that's it really.
A lot of nodding heads on the call with the statements you're making that I think we can all probably relate to that statement, that when you are holding that role of being a mentor for someone, it gives you all of the good feelings and it's nice to be, and it is a privilege to be a part of someone else's story. I remember overhearing one of the summer students at Plant and Food talking to the other summer students on the table next to me and saying that I was one of their mentors. And I just remember it was one of the like proudest moments. Because I didn't see myself in that light for them, but I was happy to hold that role regardless. Jill is someone who mentors a lot of students and other staff members within Plant and Food Research. What made you want to be a mentor?
I think probably I've really appreciated support and kind of mentoring role that I've had from colleagues and line managers, and that really has made a difference to my career. And I think looking back, it would have been great to have someone in that more formal mentoring role as well. And so I think I've always just sort of naturally chatted and supported people informally as a mentor, a bit like you were talking about, Erin. But it was when I became a science group leader that I had all these staff under me, and I felt I've actually got an opportunity to make a difference to some of these people. I kind of felt like the early and mid-career people, that they needed more support. Okay, they have a line manager and in Plant and Food Research, at least once a year, they'll sit down with them and review last year and look for the future and what development they want. But that's very much dependent on that line manager as to how much of that sort of future focus they have. And having somebody outside of that role just to focus on that person and them and what they want and where they want to head, I felt would really support those people. They're just kind of thrown into their job and they're busy doing all the work that they need to do, and having a bit of space to do something would be great. And so that was why I actually wrote in my plan for the future, my development, that I was going to set up a mentoring program for people in my science group. And then I thought, oh, how am I going to do this? And so then I went to the development person in our people and culture and said, oops, I've said this, would you be able to help me? And he said, oh, that's great. I've been wanting to do something like this for ages. Let's develop this together. And so we made my group kind of the pilot study, and where two of them and I worked together to develop this program up and started it. And it was a really great success, and the people that joined all were really happy with how it had gone. And so they've now rolled that out to other science groups within plant and food research. And so, yeah, that was kind of how I really wanted to do it, but I wanted to do it for more than just the people I could do. So, you know, hopefully that's made a difference.
And credit where credit's due, Jill, that mentoring program that you and the People and Culture team co-developed actually won the award for the learning and development capability at the Human Resources Institute of New Zealand National Awards. So it was clearly a very successful program, and we were lucky to have you on board at Plant and Food to develop and run that. So thank you for your contribution.
Oh, wow. No, it's been given me great pleasure.
I think it's also really a great point for people who are maybe listening to this podcast and thinking that they would like to have a mentor either in the university system or within their careers, to sometimes remember that getting a mentor outside of your immediate circle can be really beneficial as well. For myself, I have 3 supervisors, all of which are male, and I'm at Plant and Food Research. So it was really important for me to find a female mentor so I could get that perspective, because sometimes it's not always easy being a woman in science, as we know and have chatted about on this podcast before. So it can be really helpful to step outside your immediate zone to find mentors. And I know that's obviously what I did to find Priya. So that was really cool. What made you want to be a mentor, Priya? What made you send that email to the L'Oreal Women in Mentoring program?
When I got introduced to this family of women in science via this L'Oreal organization's awards, it was really heartening to hear how 20 years ago, the professors, the women who are professors today, when they were students, how universities were and how society was, it's changed quite a lot. And it was interesting to see how what we take for granted today, things like having a bathroom, right, for women in the building where you work, right? These are, I mean, I'm not even talking about places like India or somewhere. I'm just saying anywhere. Being the first is not easy. And being the first and having a hard time doing it can be doubly not easy. And it was what their experiences when they shared it with us and how that helped us kind of think about what we could do for the next generation, so that people who are children now, women who are little girls who are children now, who when they come to, I don't know, whatever positions they want to be, that we've kind of improved it equally for them. I wanted to keep the progress going in some sense. And it's just amazing to interact with people who can self-reflect about themselves and about each other, because it kind of forces you, when you see it happening all around you, that everybody's actually self-reflective. It allows you to say, yes, I can think about things for myself. I can imagine I might want to do that, and I can actually do that. So that's kind of like, you know, one of the students in a university in UK was looking at the board where there is the picture of everybody in the department. And I was asking her, what do you want to be after you finish this? And she was saying, oh, I'd just like to go get a job somewhere. And I was saying, why not become an academic? You enjoy what you're studying. And her response was, how many women do you see up there? So in some cases, we need to see people that look like us, people that we can identify with. They might not be the same color, they might not be the same gender, but we need to identify that I'm like this person. If they can be this, I can be this as well. So I feel whatever role we play, we need to show others that they can be that as well. And that's mostly the reason why I want to be a mentor.
I guess I'm preaching to the choir a little bit about the importance of mentoring as I'm speaking with three people who are actively engaging with mentoring. However, mentoring isn't always viewed as such a beneficial thing to the person being the mentor, and it's kind of viewed as a pain for them sometimes, or an obligation that they have to do in order to tick that box on their career development thing. I obviously don't believe in this idea of what it is like to be a mentor, but it might be helpful to people who are maybe resisting the role of being a mentor within their communities to know what you kind of gain from being a mentor. So in that mentor-mentee relationship, obviously, Lizzie, I think we talked about it going both ways. So it would be really interesting to hear your perspective on what you've gained yourself as being someone who has held that mentor role.
This is a great question. I want to say the top thing is like, I think what I love is, yeah, watching someone grow and develop is like really awesome, and like being alongside them to acknowledge the change and the things that they have
They're
done.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think part of my mentoring roles, we've sat down and we've set goals. And even with some of my students here at uni, and like, man, it's so awesome for them to like come to the end of the semester and we like chat about it, and for them to like see that they've accomplished stuff. Yeah, and seen how it's helped them in their life. Like, that's really cool. Yeah, and even though, yeah, uni, they're here to study in an academic sense, I often get students to set maybe like a physical health or a well-being sort of goal, and just to see how that also has helped them grown in those sort of ways. I feel like our world is so fast moving, and particularly like the next generation, the access that they have to screens and the internet and all the stuff that like they have to consume. We were chatting about it as colleagues. I think when I was younger, like the only source of news you had was if you like wanted to read the paper that your parents were reading, or you had like the 6 o'clock news. Whereas now there's so many apps and there's just so much, yeah, all these young people are consuming and thinking about all these ideas. And I always feel like I learn so much. Yeah, and mentoring someone can help me feel more open-minded about the world and different things like that. And that's hopefully that kind of can make me a better person as well. So yeah, those are some things I reckon you gain from mentoring.
Yeah, totally. I always find it really rewarding because I teach a couple of lab courses at the University of Auckland. And I always find it really rewarding when I see those students popping up in the next year, and then they go into postgrad and they go into all these other things. So it's really cool to be walking alongside students in that sense. What about you, Priya? What are you gaining from being a mentor apart from a fantastic friendship and quiz team with me?
Definitely, as Lizzie was saying, to be part of somebody else's journey and watch them kind of grow and find who they are. It's amazing to just see people do that. That is definitely a big thing. I would say the more selfish reason for me that I actually benefit from is it keeps me honest to practice what I'm preaching. If I tell you to do something, and if I tell you to kind of, be open to new possibilities, go to talks that you don't know the topic. And, if every conference, I tell my mentees, every conference, go to one session where you don't know the topic at all. Just learn one new thing. And, maybe you're just scribbling all the terms that you're going to Google anyway or something. So, because you don't know anything. Otherwise, you're just looking at pretty pictures on the wall. But it's something, it keeps me practicing what I am saying to others. And in some sense, my mentees, unconsciously, they don't know it, are my touchstones. They keep me doing what I'm saying to them. I think that's the biggest benefit I get. Yeah.
What about you, Jill?
Yeah, obviously, like the others, it's great to be supporting others and seeing them grow. And I think also helping them through their own journey and making their own decision. For example, one was in a science team that they were kind of unhappy with, and so I talked through them about what was it that they wanted to get out of the team, where was their focus wanting to be, and what other opportunities might they have. And they came up with a couple of other teams. They went and researched it all, and in the end shifted to a different team, and that they're just so much happier in that team. And so it was great to kind of see them, me help them talk it through for themselves and make their own decision. So that's great. But actually, I think the other thing is I get ideas and suggestions from the mentee about things I could be doing better. So it's not just about me talking to them and thinking, oh, that's a good thing, I should keep doing that. But also, when we're exploring ideas about something and they pop up with something and I thought, that's a really good idea, I should be doing that. And so it's absolutely a two-way thing. And the other thing I think is I can reflect on things that have worked well for me and things that haven't. And that also reminds me of what I should be focusing on as well. So I think there's some real benefits. It's definitely not a one-way thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're listening to this and considering becoming a mentor, it's good to know that 84% of mentors reported that the mentoring relationship provides two-way inspiration. So you're getting just as much out of it as your mentee is. But if you're maybe a little bit more like me and you like the selfish reasons as well, mentors are actually 6 times more likely to be promoted and 20% more likely to get a pay rise. So there's those good benefits as well if you're looking to join forces with the rest of us. So I guess if you are on the other side of the mentor-mentee relationship and you're wanting to be mentored and finding those connections within either the university or within your workplace, and I'm specifically thinking of those more formal mentoring relationships because you're always going to find them with your colleagues and with your line managers. How do we go about finding mentors? Should we start with Jill?
That is kind of quite challenging. I mean, as great as the mentoring program in Plant Food is, it's only a limited number of people that get to go in that, and then you're teamed up with a mentor that there's a range that you can kind of identify which you're most, look the best. But outside of that, I think it's probably a bit of opportunistic. Maybe you need to actually step out of your comfort zone. You see someone that you think maybe within but preferably outside your main group, and someone that you think could be a good mentor, and ask them. Why not? The worst they can do is say no. But if you don't ask them, if you think they might be someone that's great, then go for it.
Yeah, I love a cold call email for those sort of things.
I've recently done that, and I'm going to meet a potential new mentor next Friday. So yeah, and I mean, just to add to what Jill was saying, definitely cold call emails. I've done that multiple times. Yes, I've got some no's, but also, yeah, let's chat. And one thing I've kind of learned over the years of doing this cold emails multiple times is the answer to make it a yes rather than a no, or at least I will meet you once. It's very helpful if when I write my email that I actually say what level of commitment I'm looking for. Can we just meet once a month for like a year and then see how it goes? That kind of really tells the person what level of time commitment. Forget about the actual thinking about what they can tell you and stuff. They will happily do that, but they need to know what to put in their calendar, or what amount of time are they promising you? And in that sense, I heard that when you are, asking, I don't know, professors or lecturers or people with a lot of other roles that they are playing, like Jill, she's a science group leader and doing multiple other things, being on the board. These are the people that we want to mentor us because they know about a lot of different things, but they consequently have less time. So letting them know what level of time you're kind of hoping to get with them, and giving them an out date to say, after a year, we can both review and see if you want to do this continuously. That probably gets you a yes rather than a no. That's what I would advise, to find a mentor, a mentee. More often, many institutions and departments in the uni have some kind of formalized or semi-formalized way in which they can help you find a mentor. Talk to Lizzie, she'll help you. Or other people. There are people around who can guide you towards what exists. There might be a formal pathway, but if there isn't, you can always do this cold email, I would say.
Or, if you're at a conference, you meet someone at a conference, why not? If someone, you feel like you might connect with that person, why not reach out to them?
That's a good point, actually, with Lizzie, because a lot of students might be listening to this who are at the University of Auckland and think that Lizzie might be a great person to reach out to. How would you recommend to your students that you're taking care of, or other students that you haven't met yet, Lizzie, how to find mentors within the space?
Yeah, I think, yeah, Jill and Priya mentioned some great ways. Personally, I'm quite straight up. I would just, if I found someone or chatted to someone that I thought, yeah, was really cool, then I would probably just ask them. But I know that that's tricky. Like a lot of students are
Mm.
quite shy and like that's quite intense for them. Yeah, and whether, yeah, like sending an email so you're not having to like ask straight up in front of them is a really good way. But yeah, and I think as well, I think maybe like a couple of questions ago, you talked about how it's really important for probably as well, particularly for minorities. Like it's hard, when you look up and you don't see anyone who looks like you. I think I almost feel like there's something in like our subconscious that maybe even like tells us that we can't do that. Sometimes I think it's not even quite like, sometimes it's at a conscious level, but you just sort of like, yeah, those narratives like spin around for you. So yeah, even like outside the space, or how Jill said at a conference, like, yeah, if you meet someone and you're like, man, like I kind of want to be like you one day, just like asking them is a really awesome way. Yeah, I guess like as a student, you could ask like a support advisor maybe for tips in terms of connecting. Like, yeah, if a student asks me, I could probably like try and connect them with someone, like particularly for undergrads. I imagine there'd also be like postgrad students who would probably be like up for doing a bit of mentoring, but I think, yeah, it's just tricky in a big space, like you don't always cross over. So yeah, maybe chatting to a support advisor like within your faculty, that could be if you were interested in mentoring. And I also just had some thoughts as well. I think, I don't know if we like don't talk about this because we have a lot of tall poppy syndrome in New Zealand, but even if like you maybe felt like you could be a mentor or you had something to offer, yeah, whether you met someone who could be maybe a like potential mentee, if you even offered to go out for coffee and then just had the coffee and then just mentioned that you enjoyed it and asked if they wanted to be a mentee. And like they can always say no, or you can sort of like ask them to get in touch with you if they want to organize it again. And then if they don't get in touch, then that that that's not what they're out for, and that's cool. But yeah, I think there's also stuff that people who are mentors can like, yeah, do as well that can help that process or to like start that relationship.
That's a really cool point. I really like that. And I think it's also worth noting that sometimes people who are a little bit more on the shy side or the more introverted side listen to advice pieces like this and can't relate to them. And that's where those emails come in really well. And flattery also works quite well too. I've often gone up to people saying that I want to be more like them in the future, and that seems to work quite well. But if you are more on the introverted side, one piece of advice that I would have that works quite well for me and a lot of the students that I've sort of had slight mentoring roles with is that it only takes 20 seconds of bravery to get most things that you're looking for in life. And if that's 20 seconds of bravery to hit send on an email or to force yourself to jump onto the Zoom call talking to someone, just those first 20 seconds is the hardest part. And once you've done those, everything else is smooth sailing. So just keep that in mind if you are struggling with that aspect a little bit.
I had another idea for like students who are got supervisors or whatever. They could always ask their supervisor if they knew of somebody who might be a good mentor, outside mentor for them. Though the supervisors are going to be quite well connected across things, and just having them connect you might be a way forward without you actually taking that first step.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what happens in these relationships with our mentors or our mentees when they kind of naturally come to a close? Priya, is this something that you can speak to?
Yeah, I would love to. So, from experience, I've had quite a few mentors in my life and a few mentees. And in most cases, you maybe move away from that location, or you kind of stop working in that area, or you kind of life situation takes you somewhere else. And in all cases, there has been like a acknowledgement and a summary of, it has been useful, it has been helpful. And saying that has made it kind of really nice kind of way to summarize what the mentor-mentee relationship you've had with the other person. And in many cases, we do remain as friends because you've kind of shared this journey with each other, and there's this two-way communication. So you've really listened to each other. That means you kind of already are well on your way to becoming friends. So most of my mentors are my friends. We send Christmas cards to each other. There's one at the corner that's from my mentor in UK. And, you know, it's halfway across the world, but we still make time to maybe talk at a conference when we meet, or once a year around Christmas or something, to just say, hi, how are you doing? This is what my life is going through right now. And, you know, not necessarily ask for more advice, but some advice does trickle through.
Sure.
And in most cases, I would say it's not like you just decide to just stop and never speak to this person again. And in most cases, you are going to just get an extra friend in your life. So it is not a bad thing to
It's a win-win either way.
involved in this in any context.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to extend a massive thank you to all of our panelists for joining on today. I'm sure that everyone listening to this episode will be leaving feeling a little bit more inspired to both find and be good mentors. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh, yeah, I really enjoyed being a part of the conversation, and it's so lovely to meet you, Jill and Priya and Erin.
It's lovely to meet you both as well. And
Yeah, this has been fun, and I've found it really inspiring as well. So cool.
Awesome. And thank you for listening. Don't forget to check out our other episodes on our website or any of your favorite podcast platforms. We'd also love it if you could drop us a review and subscribe while you're there. Mā te wā.